Hey, what's up, everybody? We have a new YouTube channel. Make sure you subscribe right now. Leave a comment on the video. Share it with your friends. It's also a podcast, 3 and Out, wherever you listen with me, John Middlekauff, Apple, Spotify. We have you covered, as well as thevolume.com. We have merch. Check out. I got 3 and Out hats right now. Thevolume.com. Search the podcast. Buy some merch. Okay, let's dive into a little thing we call the Middlekauff mailbag. Very, very easy to get involved. There's a little thing called Instagram. I would imagine many of you have it on your smartphones. You go to Instagram and you go to my DMs, just my name, @JohnMiddlekauff. Fire in those DMs. Get your questions answered here on the podcast. Very easy to do.
Was just sitting down trying to have a little lunch, and Black Monday turned into Black Tuesday, and now it's transitioned into Black Wednesday because Pete Carroll's out as head coach. And wow. Not that I didn't think it was time, because I did. I mean, honestly, the run was over years ago. He's in his early 70s. The defense is awful. He's a defensive coach. His energy's elite. Good guy. Easy to root for. But, it's time. This is the right move by the Seattle Seahawks. They have an elite general manager. They have an excellent roster. I mean, pieces all over the place on offense. Elite wide receivers. 2 good young tackles. Sweet running backs. Couple young pieces on defense. To me, they got ownership with some cash. I think this is a job that a lot of people are going to be interested in. Going to work with John Schneider, like I said, a good roster. You're inheriting a program that you got a bunch of guys that are used to winning. So to me, the end of Pete Carroll was really defensive guy, defense always sucks. I mean, that's what are we doing? I can't do that. And I think the same thing with Mike Tomlin. Sometimes your career ends in a place. Doesn't mean you suck. Doesn't mean you can't coach. It just means in that individual team, it's time for a change. And to me, props to Seattle for realizing, we got to mix it up.
Appreciate your blunt honesty. Here's a mailbag question for you. I'm a Jets fan. I feel like Douglas and Saleh should both be fired. But since this franchise has been such a train wreck, another restart symbolizes more dysfunction. Agreed. You got to try one last year with them, hoping Rodgers stays healthy. Yeah, they don't have a choice. They don't have a choice. But just to stick with something because think about the guy that gets divorced a second time. Should he not get divorced time 2? Because I don't want it to, it's going to look like I just can't figure this out, but this is not working out. We are not compatible. This is not, I can't stand being in this relationship. Or she thinks that. Just because you've been divorced one time doesn't mean you can't get divorced another time if it doesn't work. Right now, you can be well, people are going to judge it. So be it. They were stuck, though. They were stuck because of the Rodgers situation. But I don't think it had anything to do with dysfunction. I think it was simply because making that Rodgers move bailed them out. Because I don't think they did a good job. I saw Jake Glazer put Jeff Ulbrich, and I've been following Jeff Ulbrich's career since the 90s when he was on the 49ers, as a head coaching candidate. It's the Jets defense, no defense. And Mike Lombardi has been on this for a while. No defense gets anointed. And then you watch on given weeks, you're are they good? What is going on? The Patriots. And you can maybe nitpick me statistically. The Patriots defense consistently plays better than what I watched of the Jets. The Dolphins worked them without Tyreek Hill. They almost blew the following week to the Commanders, who are fucking terrible. So I want to like Saleh. People think I have this weird thing with the beard dying. I truly believe it. Now, if his wife wants him to dye his beard, no issue with it. But if that's his deal, I think bro, you're in the NFL. You're not recruiting. Ultimately, Ryan Day dyes his beard. No big deal. he's recruiting. Image matters. Saban, Coach K, dye their hair. I get it. I don't have hair, but I understand dyeing your hair if it matters. Right? If you're losing and you're worried about how you look, bro, all you need to figure out is how to score fucking multiple touchdowns in the game. You need to figure that out. And maybe you just knew he had a lifeline because Rodgers was hurt. I feel that organization's out of whack. I picked them to win the division this year, which clearly ended 4 plays into the season. I'll promise you this. Unless they add Trent Williams, Lane Johnson, and Jason Kelce in this offseason, they keep Hackett. Absolutely no chance I pick them to make the playoffs. They will be my pick to be an utter disaster next year. And a disaster for them is like 6-7 wins again and just be like, it implodes. Everyone fired. Rodgers retires. You notice, listen, the Rodgers thing on TV, it's like the media. You guys just reiterate the same shit over and over. Get out of your little bubble. Talk to some other people. They haven't let go of the immunization shit. They are obsessed with Rodgers with that. It's crazy. It's like, guys, I don't think you know how people are talking outside of your little bubble in 2024. Right. And I'm not even talking about vaccines. I'm just talking they're just holding on to COVID, the masks, the lockdowns. They loved them all. It's just kind of weird. But it's why they despise Rodgers. To me, I don't give a shit about any of that. I never cared about it. Do you? I'll do me. But to me, when it came to Aaron Rodgers, the thing that I noticed in those couple plays, look a little slower. I mean, looked a little slower. And a big part of Rodgers' thing was like movement, right? No different than last year. Kind of started playing poorly. He's 40 years old. Like most guys don't keep playing until they're 45. Like there's a chance it's done, especially now coming off an Achilles. Everyone's like, well, he throws the ball well. Well, yeah, shit. I mean, he's going to throw the Dan Marino at 60 years old spins the ball well, right? I could go watch Jack Nicklaus putt. I bet he could make some 10-footers. Like he's going to throw the ball well until he dies. To me, it's more about how he plays. The media hates him. I get it. They're a weird group. I mean, they really are. Talk about a group that really struggles to resonate with normal people. It's like, guys, do you understand how you look on the social media streets? Like, you guys are just unhinged. I mean, we're in 2024. What are you guys talking about? Question for the pod. Do you think Atlanta could be like the 2020 Bucks if they get the right coach and quarterback? Seems to me like they have a great roster, but just suffer from coaching and quarterback mismatches. Could they turn it around in a year and compete with San Fran and Philly? No chance. Who's going to be their quarterback? Like, where are they getting their CJ Stroud? Who's their quarterback? I would have said they would have been in the mix for Kirk Cousins coming off an Achilles. So I guess maybe if they got Harbaugh, because they got some defensive pieces, keep improving the line of scrimmage, and somehow just find some service. I just don't know where they get a decent quarterback. I mean, part of Harbaugh's success is like J.J. McCarthy, Alex Smith, Kaepernick. Like when he's won, Andrew Luck. You know, you can't win without a quarterback. I don't care if you're Bill Walsh, Jim Harbaugh, or me. You're going to lose. So I think that situation for Atlanta, personally, I'd kind of blow it up. I'd trade some of their assets. Though I clicked on Rich McKay and Arthur Blank talking. It's not how Rich was talking. They think they got championship pieces. I also love like the team president that like a Rich McKay, and I don't know Rich. So listen, maybe I'm reading it wrong, but who clearly is pretty in the mix of football decisions. I'm not saying he's making them, but when it comes to salary cap trades, like he's involved. Yet when the coach sucks, like not my problem. Like Dimitrov's got to go. This guy, Dan Quinn's got to go. Arthur Smith's got to go. Like I didn't fuck up. I'm just here, with the owner. They got a good gig, man. Make 7 figs. Team wins. They get some credit. Team loses. Not on them. Incredible job. I'm going to go out on a limb, say sneaky scam going on with presidents like Rich. It was like that way with Allen forever in Washington. It's like, well, you act like you're not the pseudo GM / Grand Poobah, but you kind of are. Like there are truly some presidents, that are just doing football stuff and are part of the group because they're boys with everybody. But they don't they wouldn't be up there with the owner when the coach gets fired. Like my guy in San Francisco, Al Guido, Don Smolensky with the Eagles. They're helping making their organization a ton of money, but they're not doing this half in, half out job, which a lot of presidents, if you notice, Joe Banner did it forever in the NFL. It's such a scam. It's like the moment shit goes wrong, not my fault. Where the GM and the head coach, they're all in. They're either going to win or they're going to lose, and they're going to get fired. The president loves being a part of it when shit's going well, like certain guys, and then get next to the owner and start pointing fingers when stuff goes wrong. And there's a large contingent of those guys in the NFL. And there's also a large contingent of just legit presidents who are cash cows. And I know these two guys in Smolensky and Al who are just that. That's what I'd want. Guys that are money printers and are just good guys. Not in to do some weird scumbag will put a knife in your back the moment you aren't looking when you lose a couple games. Because I'm telling you, that's happening a lot in the NFL when it comes to these. Kevin Warren. It's why I am it's why I get uncomfortable about that situation. Like, wait, I report to you, but you're the business guy, but you have a 2 deep roster in your hand on game day. You want me to talk to you about the draft and my rankings and the trades we might make. But if I win, then shit, you're going to be right there next to me. But if I lose, you're going to be hiding somewhere. Like, think about any other industry with those, with that definition of the situation. You're like, this something doesn't add up here, right? Are we all in this boat together? Or are you in this boat if it's a yacht and the moment it starts to sink, you're on another boat? To me, Rich McKay sitting next to Arthur Blank had that written all over it. Now, listen, I saw this clip on Thomas Dimitroff. He was fired by them. He seems to like him. I'm not saying he's a bad guy. I'm just saying it's a very weird position. I wouldn't like, honestly, the president of business operations to like ever have say in anything football if he's just going to be on scholarship for every coach. It's just bizarre. It's not it's not a good way to run your organization. There's a difference of like the GM and stuff. Like, that guy's allowed to be around. He's cool. Like, we're talking football. He knows our secrets and stuff. If he's like not looking to cut my head off the moment I miss on a player in the draft or lose some games if I'm a coach. DraftKings Sportsbook, an official betting partner of the NFL playoffs, is bringing you an offer to help make the playoffs electrifying. New customers can bet $5 on any game and get $200 instantly in bonus bets. Download the DraftKings Sportsbook now and use code JOHN. New customers can bet $5 to get $200 instantly in bonus bets. Only on DraftKings Sportsbook with code JOHN JOHN. The crown is yours. Regarding Trevor Lawrence, do you remember the comment he made when he was coming into the league? His wife said there's also more in life than playing football. Taylor agreed and said he doesn't play with a chip on his shoulder, and I just don't have that. I can't manufacture that. I don't want to. That was such a huge red flag for me, and I'm not surprised he isn't living up to the huge expectations. If I was a GM, identifying prospects with a chip would be a top marker for me. But it seems like the hype train always takes over. I'm telling you, like, it's so easy to go, I just want the toughest love football human imaginable. I want a guy that would like that dude Monday night for Washington, who clearly his ankle and, lower bodies were all screwed up. That guy was, playing till the end. They were getting blown out, and number 7's running the ball, Dylan Johnson. Like that, you'd be like, you want that care, and he's not, some elite NFL prospect. He's probably not going to get drafted, but you'd want that mindset in all your players. And then you get to the draft, and you're like, well, Trevor Lawrence is way better than all these other quarterback prospects, and we need a quarterback. So it's like, and you could argue, well, never stray from that idea, right? Only do that. So you just pass on them. And you'd be like, well, just pass on quarterbacks. Take the best player. Take Jamar Chase or take whoever, in that draft that's an elite player, right? I guess Kyle Pitts went 4, Chase went 5. Just take Jamar Chase. And you would have been proven right over time, but you wouldn't have a quarterback. And listen, Trevor Lawrence, someone just DM'd me. They're like, look at Peyton Manning. People forget he couldn't win. It's like, yeah, he couldn't win in the playoffs. Peyton Manning was a second-team All-Pro by his second year in the NFL. Peyton Manning was an elite player by his third year. Yeah, he didn't win in the playoffs. He was getting there. Like, listen, if Peyton Manning's career had happened right now, people would have been critical of him. But you couldn't dispute how dominant he was in the regular season. Like, it's kind of, I hate even saying this because Peyton Manning is in a different universe than this guy. This guy's a historic quitter. But James Harden, like, part of the reason you can be critical of James Harden, because he dominates in the regular season most of his career, then he gets to the playoffs, he shits the bed. But Peyton, was so good in the regular season. Then he finally won it, and you just couldn't say anything. Trevor Lawrence, they didn't make the playoffs this year. They had a losing record in America. The throw he made on 4th down wasn't even remotely close. And listen, everyone has a bad game. I like Michael Penix as a prospect. That game was pretty ugly. That game was Makes you think twice. Like, God, I might have to go back and watch some film. But there's one game. One thing about Trevor had a bad season. Every time I watched him, it's like, am I missing something here? And I actually picked them to win the division. I thought he was going to be a top 5 quarterback. I listened to the pod. I was wondering why there's so much hate on Bryce Young. Have you seen the Panthers roster? Why don't you say anything about Trevor Lawrence? He has a way better team and still hasn't done anything. Well, he did make the playoffs last year and throw a bunch of touchdowns in a playoff game and win a game after he threw a bunch of picks. I'm not roasting Bryce Young. And listen, I've acknowledged his owner's a nut. His coaching staff was a joke. The offensive personnel was awful. But there is just an eye test of like, why does he look so tiny? And reality is he is small. So I think that when you look at Bryce Young, you're not defining his career off a rookie year that was a joke. But I also think there were some red flags, right? Like it turns out Trevor Lawrence, you wouldn't have defined his career during the Urban Meyer season, right? It's like no one. It's untenable. Like what an impossible situation. But were there some red flags that year looking back? Probably. I bet if we really did a deep dive, there were. The difference is Trevor Lawrence is 6'5" and he can run. Bryce Young's not a great athlete and he's tiny. No one's acting. The other thing is the other quarterback. How is Bryce Young going to be better than CJ Stroud? Like, how's it going to happen? I said this. It was clear like year one. Tua's never going to be better than Josh Allen. He does not have the capability to be better than Josh Allen. It was year one. Or not Josh Allen. I meant Justin Herbert. It was clear. It's like one guy and the other guy, like, what the fuck are we talking about? And Tua's become good. Josh Allen is a star. Like, it's clear that Bryce Young doesn't have what CJ has in the bag. If you go play golf with someone and you go play golf with a really good player, you go like, I don't have that shot. It might be like a draw 6-iron from 190 yards. Like, I can't even do that. My ball doesn't even turn that way, right? Or a drive, or it could be like an incredible flop shot. You're like, I don't even know how to attempt that. And there's a level of that. Like, obviously, CJ's team and coach are better. But when you watch CJ, you can remove stats and just watch. And you go, physically, he can't do that. And that's how I feel like when I watch the two guys. I thought the same thing about Tua and Justin Herbert. You immediately know. Because physically, they're in a different universe, talent-wise. And when I watch the physical attributes of Bryce Young, he's the smallest quarterback I've ever seen in NFL history. Think about that. He's the smallest quarterback in NFL history. No guy, especially in the Super Bowl era, the last 50-plus years, has ever weighed whatever he weighs. And whatever they tell you he weighs, remove 15 pounds. If they tell you he weighs 200, I'd guess he weighs 183. He's a 183-pound quarterback in the National Football League. Do you follow some of these players on Instagram? Do you see the size of these defensive players? Do you see how big the defensive linemen are? Have you just seen like Myles Garrett without a shirt on? Or Nick Bosa's legs? Or Aaron Donald, the way he plays? Like this is not every single team has an incredible pass rusher, let alone multiple big ones. How is that going to play? I like Bryce coming out. I thought he was, I would have taken him number one. I'm not acting like I'm smarter than these guys. I thought he was awesome. And then I saw him in a Panthers uniform and I was out. This doesn't work. And this isn't baseball where it's like, well, Jose Altuve is 5'5". It shouldn't work. Well, yeah, it does. He's an elite hitter. He's like Ted Williams meets like fucking Alex Rodriguez, right? It can work in baseball. It doesn't really work in basketball. Like, how many guys under 5'9" have ever played? Now, basketball is different. There's a huge height element that there's not necessarily in football. Like, you can be 6 feet tall and play quarterback. You could be 5'11", 5'10", like Russell, who's a way better athlete and a much bigger arm, and just be an incredible scrambler. But when I watch Bryce, I go, well, he's never going to play like that. He's a pocket quarterback who's 5'9", $180. What was I thinking? Like, just sometimes we overthink it. And then you look back, you go, what was I thinking? You watch CJ Stroud, he's not Peyton Manning, he's not 6'5", but he's clearly 6'2", 6'3", well put together, still young, only going to put on strength, elite arm, elite touch. To me, there's not even a comparison like he's a better athlete than Bryce. That's the scary thing. To me, if Bryce was an elite athlete, that's why Kyler was an elite prospect. Elite would be strong because he was short, but an excellent prospect. Kyler has absolutely everything beside height. He's an accurate thrower. He has an elite arm in terms of strength. He can play within the pocket. He obviously can scramble, and he has an elite speed. He's just short. Kyler has things that like Bryce, and he's thick. He outweighs Bryce, I'd say, by in real pounds, not fake, what they would report, 30 pounds of muscle. 215, one guy's 185. I mean, aren't these just incredible red flags? Like once you get red flags, whether it's in business, whether it's a relationship, you can keep your fingers crossed and hope, right? I would say if you're an investor, the faster you get out, the more lucrative it will be for you. If it's a relationship, the quicker you move on or break up, the less stress will be on you. And as a player or as a team, as a fan, the quicker you embrace, we might have a problem, the easier it is to transition off of it. Because the longer you hold on, the disappointment will just come inevitably. And maybe he's a historic outlier. Because if he becomes just a good player, I would say he's a historic outlier. In fairness to him, he's got an organization that you wouldn't bet on either. But say out loud, a guy 5'9", a $180 is going to be a good quarterback in the NFL. I have a hard time seeing it now. And I saw it a year ago, and I feel stupid.